This is the tragic tale of Dr. Charles Scudder and Joey Odom, whose castle in the forest offered no protection from the evils of the world.
I'm Amy Petula, and I'm the author of the Corpsewood Manor Murders in North Georgia. I had practiced law for 20 years, and when I first moved to the area in the mid-'80s, that's when I first started hearing about the case, which around here used to be called the Devil Worshiper Murders. That's how all the court people knew it. Then when I started the ghost tour in 2007, I started hearing about it from an entirely different angle. There were two gay men, Charles Scudder and Joey Odom, that lived in Chicago. Charles was a professor of pharmacology at Loyola University. He was also the associate director of the Institute for the Study of Mind, Drugs, and Behavior. They basically got fed up with the rat race. Charles went in on his 50th birthday and resigned from the university. They sent all the Renaissance-era furniture that they had down to Tryon, Georgia, where it sat in the woods for a year covered with tarps. And they loaded up the truck with everything else. They had a couple of huge English Mastiffs, brought a couple of human skulls, according to the police, 12,000 doses of LSD, and built themselves by hand a castle in the middle of the National Forest with no construction experience. They read a book on how to do it. They had named the castle Corpsewood Manor, and the reason was they got there in the middle of winter. It was in the middle of a terrible blizzard. And when they got there, first they start driving down their drive, which they named Dead Horse Road because there was a dead horse in the middle of the road. Get down there and here's all these dead trees around. So that's why they named it Corpsewood. So that's how it came to have that name. Charles was very outgoing, very friendly, extremely brilliant. So he knew a lot about a lot of different things. He had a variety of books. He was a member, whether or not he paid his dues, of the Church of Satan, so that's why it got tagged with the name Devil Worshiper Case. From what I understand, Joey was not, he was raised Catholic, and I don't think he was practicing anything. Joey was much different. Joey would rather cook on a wood stove or whatever than electric stoves, so getting away from it all, getting someplace where there was no electricity was right up his alley too. You know, Charles's attitude was, you know, you can live on very little money if you know the right way to do it. So that's what he was doing. They were basically off the grid. They were very friendly, very open to people. You know, if anyone stopped by, because they got a lot of gawkers coming by. I mean, what do you expect with a castle in the middle of the woods that had no, you know, running water, no electricity or anything like that? You know, they would invite them not into the manor. They had a separate building called the Chicken House, you know, where they would socialize with them. The Chicken House, I have never, ever been able to find any photos of the interior of the Chicken House. It was 3 stories. What they say is that on the bottom story, there were chickens. You know, they were kept there. On the second story, there were a lot of canned goods. And the 3rd floor, there was no real furniture. It was all pink. You know, it's what people called the pink room. There were mattresses, pink carpeting, whatever. And that's where, you know, they said, oh, they, you know, had their sex parties. The view of these 2 men, it's really interesting because you find people that either think they're either demons or angels, and there's very little in between. I think they were people. You know, they had some good and some bad, just like everybody else.
The couple became known locally for their peculiarities and their hospitality, but on December 12, 1982, 2 men, Tony West and Avery Brock, would exploit the couple's friendliness for murder.
Avery first met them because he was hunting on the lands, you know, and he'd run into Charles one day, you know, and Charles was friendly to him and socialized with him some, you know, invited him to the Chicken House. So Avery went back and told Tony about it. So Tony went with them a couple of times to visit before they cooked up the scheme. They thought, you know, here are these guys that don't work any jobs, but they're able to, you know, to live on their own in a castle, even though it was really tiny. It was like, I think think 1,600 square feet or something, but that they must be rich. So that's why they'd gotten convinced that this would be a good robbery to do, because they were convinced that they had gold or jewels or something there. As a practical matter, they kept all their money in the bank. There was no cash like they envisioned laying around.
The sensational details surrounding the case sparked a media frenzy that has spawned folklore and legends which endure to this day.
The media response, of course, a situation like that where, you got drugs, you got sex, rock and roll, they're going to go crazy. So, like I said, immediately got tagged the Devil Whisperer murders, and there was a drug laboratory down in the supposed basement. Big lie, no basement, no place to have had a drug laboratory. I've seen videotape going through the whole place, no drug lab there. The guy who said he saw Bigfoot chained, I think he said he saw it chained in the basement, so obviously, big lie. But there are some weird things that are, associated with that case that aren't explainable.
One evening, Joey awoke in the middle of the night, startled. He'd had a horrible dream that he described to his companion. Charles immediately rushed to paint the image. It was a self-portrait of Charles, gagged, with 5 bullet holes in his head. Unbeknownst to both the victims and the murderers, this would be the exact condition in which police found him.
That's just one of the many, many really bizarre things about the case.
The Corpsewood murders have spawned a great deal of mythology surrounding the deaths of Dr. Charles Scudder and Joey Odom. But certainly one of the most curious is the Christmas Eve arrest of Tony West 2 weeks after the murders occurred.
So his car runs out of gas when he was just right almost to the state line between Georgia and Tennessee. It's pouring down rain, raining cats and dogs. So he decides to walk to the bar. He goes there. As soon as he gets there, here's this policeman outside, and he's like, oh, great, just what I need. So he walks up to him with his hands out like this, saying, go ahead, take me in. And the guy's like, what are you talking about? He has no idea who he is. He says, I'm wanted for 2 murders. And the guy says, well, what's your name? He's Tony West. So he looks it up on NCIC twice, doesn't find him on there. I don't know if they hadn't put it in or he was just looking it up wrong. He's like, well, I don't have anything on you. He says, I tell you what, this is happening in Georgia. If you want, I'll take you down to the police station in Rossville, and you can talk to them about it, Because, here it's Christmas Eve. He doesn't want to, that's the last thing he wants is getting involved with some Looney Tune who's claiming he committed murder. The Rossville folks immediately knew, that they knew about the murders. They knew who it was. But so they contacted Chattooga County, but in the meantime, while he's waiting, Tony's just out in the lobby sitting like, you and me right here, smoking a cigarette, whatever. The Georgia folks get worried that there might be a problem because it was a Tennessee officer that drove him from Tennessee into Georgia, and maybe that's a problem. So they drive him back up to where they had near the state line, make him walk across the state line from Tennessee to Georgia, and then pick him up and take him back down so there won't be any problems with that. Like I said, I've never heard of anybody who had to go to such trouble to get themselves arrested. It's just an unbelievable story. But that's how everything is about Corpsewood.
Today, the Corpsewood estate has fallen into ruin. Decades of neglect have allowed nature to begin reclaiming the land. But the devastation at Corpsewood Manor was man-made.
Shortly after the murders, the chicken house where they entertained guests was burned. The manor itself was also burned and destroyed sometime after the trial, not real long after the trial. There's still some remains that are there, and that's what people sometimes go out and visit, is the remains that are still there. Some folks have taken away a brick as a souvenir, or something else that they take from there as a souvenir. A lot of bricks have been returned because they say a lot of bad things start happening to them, after they take it. Whether there's actually a curse or not, there's a lot of people who believe that there's a curse out there. So, like I said, a lot of things that have gotten returned back after they were taken there. People who went and got to know them actually really liked them a lot, found them, like I said, to be very friendly and charming. It was just such a waste, and for them to do that for no reason. And they didn't even, they killed both of them, they killed the dogs too. It was just like senseless slaughter. So that's one of the things that really sticks out with me.
Today, the Corpsewood Memorial holds an annual seed project. Each spring, they give away free seeds in memory of the kindness and generosity of Charles and Joey. This is the story of a woman whose misunderstanding accidentally created a new form of art, and the couple who preserve her legacy.
And Bradshaw Clopton had a reputation for being an artist, painting on spider webs.
The history of the Spiderweb lady, Anne Bradshaw Clopton, resides in an unassuming house in Huntsville, Alabama, and the keepers of her legacy have put their own unique stamp on the area.
Welcome to the Dream Maker.
Hi, my name is Dream, and in case you have a hard time remembering it, just remember tangerine, like round and orange.
Hi, I'm Ron Gray. Dream and I are both co-owners and the creators of the Dream Maker.
We're meant to be together, and we have common goals, and some of our common goals have to do with helping people to let go of their pain or let go of their heaviness.
And we have tools to do that. We have the crystal light bed. All of us do energy work along with our massage practices. And we have the aura technology that can show your progress. But the main thing is if people come in here and they're heavy and they're looking for a way to lighten up, we try to help them.
The Dream Maker is the realization of the couple's shared passion to help people in need, and it all began with a rock.
On one of our first dates, I took him to a gem and mineral show and bought him a rock, a fluoride octahedron. And he owned a restaurant at the time, and he was just juggling this rock and playing with it, and he said, "You know, rocks have a long shelf life."
I worked with aerospace for about 16 years and worked with a solid rocket program, space lab, and space station. And I wanted to start getting more spiritual. I started trying to pay attention to your inner wisdom because you get feelings and you ignore them most of the time. And so I started trying not to ignore my inner feelings.
It's been a very interesting relationship.
Ron and Jareen opened their very own massage therapy and metaphysical gift shop in Huntsville. But soon they outgrew their location and began the hunt for the perfect new home.
So eventually we came into all of this. But we started out at the beginning just nickel and diming it, like, you know, you do when you start something. And he says, "I think we need to buy a house." And I'm going, "Really?" Okie dokie.
Every other place we looked at, the energy was real heavy. And we got here, and you could feel the energy of the place. The 100-year-old pecan trees, the energy coming off of them, it was just real higher energy. In every place we'd been at before, we had to work real hard to bring it up. And this was already up.
And it turns out that this house was built in 1926, and the owners, the Cloptons, he worked for the mill, and his wife, Anne Bradshaw Clopton, was a school teacher, had been a school teacher in town, and had a reputation for being an artist, painting on spider webs.
She had read an article about a guy in Europe that painted on spider webs, and that intrigued her, and she had watercolors, I believe, at the time.
So she tried painting on an existing web that was strung up in a bush when she was a girl. And to her surprise, of course, the next morning, it would be all collapsed and the spider would be rebuilding the web. So she learned that she had to capture the spider webs herself and make them usable inside the house. The thing is that people in Europe collected many, many, many spider webs. And so they painted on a thickness of spider webs, and that allowed them to paint very nicely. But she didn't know this, and so she collected them one at a time and put her little pictures on them, but she would paint a dot or two at a time and let it dry, and then the next day she would paint a few more so that she didn't break the web. And this made her very different from the people in Europe.
And she basically invented a whole new form of art. And I knew that it was a shame that you've got all that history that's just going away because her paintings are deteriorating. You can see the photographs we make, there's holes in the spider webs and things like that. When she exhibited at the World's Fair, she had all of her paintings up and people didn't believe they were real. And they come by and they were poking holes in them. And so she lost a lot of paintings at the World Fair.
Obviously, painting on spider webs are very little things, and so she has very miniature paintings. So we've recreated a little closet.
We have all the photographs of her paintings there. We have an antique desk set up to show what, it's not the same one that was hers, but it was as close as we could find, because there's a picture of her working in a closet, and we used that to set this up. And she painted in RC bottle caps, little Coke bottles. She put her paints in there, and little one-hair brushes.
Some old books, and old school books, because she was a school teacher. Some of the people who came by to see the exhibit were some of her ex-students, and they all had stories to tell about her and how she was very strict, and she expected people to behave.
She demanded obedience in her classrooms, but all of her students respected her.
And she even ran for an office, a local office. She didn't win. She was a female in those days, of course. That was not the best thing to be, but she had bravery, and she was very much going to do what she wanted to do.
A lot of people believe she started her first Girl Scout troop in Alabama.
And took her Girl Scout troop on camping trips, and this was kind of unheard of. It was very unusual, but she was a believer in being prepared and knowing how to deal with your environment.
So I think for the women's movement, she was one of the first.
When I first walked into this house, it was obviously another person's house, but it was so calm. It was very serene. It's like her spirit is a real creative presence here.
Thanks to the Grays and the Dreammaker, the legacy of Anne Bradshaw Clopton has been preserved to inspire future generations, just as Anne herself did in life.
The world needs reminding of people who brought balance and understanding and teaching. And sometimes they are preachers or priests, but sometimes they're ordinary people. And most of the time, these are the people that we see. And I really believe that if we're looking to do our part, then we use them as models as well.
One thing that we do is we try to walk our talk. And I think it's important to preserve history, especially history of someone that made things better.
When I come in, I say thank you, Anne, for this lovely place. And we hope that we are doing it justice for you.
If you'd like to visit the locations featured in today's episode, here is more information. Corpsewood Manor is located on private property, so please, no trespassing. The Corpsewood Memorial holds an annual seed project in honor of Dr. Charles Scudder and Joey Odom. For more information, visit facebook.com/Corpsewood Memorial. The Closet of the Spiderweb Lady is located inside the Dreammaker in Huntsville, Alabama. The Dreammaker is open Tuesday through Saturday from 10:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Massage therapy appointments are available. Visit dreammakershop.com for more information.